Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Amanda Fuller. I'm the president of the National Association of Academies of Science, and thanks for joining us today. It's October the 14th, and we're doing an Academy chat today on creative fundraising. Everybody's excited about this topic because we all feel like we want to learn more about it. So I'm really excited to have the chance to talk to folks. Thanks for tuning in. We are fortunate to have help producing these programs from Hallie Thompson and Rachel Owen, who are our admin and communications team right now for the association. We could not do it without them. And so many of the things that you all see happening right now from the National Association are thanks to Hallie and Rachel's hard work. Our newsletters, all of our communications, these programs are all because of them right now. And we are also staying on track with our strategic plan, implementing that, getting more academies involved, and making more chances for us to meet each other and build community. So Hallie, thank you so much for your help with this program. And Hallie will be facilitating us mostly today, so I will be turning over to her in a few minutes. So first, what I would like is for everyone to go around, introduce yourself, where you are coming to us from. If you're affiliated with an Academy of Science, please tell us that. And I am Amanda Fuller. I'm the executive director of the Kentucky Academy of Science in beautiful Louisville, Kentucky. And I'll bounce to my colleague Rob next, and then Rob, if you want to bounce to the next person.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Rob Weber with the Kentucky Academy of Science. I have been with the Academy for less than a year, coming in from the world of government and then before that journalism. But I work on communications and advocacy work and keep our group connected to government as well as fundraising. So glad to join you all. Oh, and I'll pass it over. Right next to me is Hallie Thompson.
I don't know if I should do an intro right now. I'm going to talk a lot, but I staff in AAS, and I sort of tried to come up with how we were going to run this session. I want to start as much communication between academies as possible, and I'm really excited to get to know all of you a little bit better. Person next to me is Philip.
Hello, I'm Philip Winchell. I'm currently serving as the archivist of the National Association of Academies of Science and also the stressed out acting director of the American Junior Academy of Science. I'm coming to you from very windy Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah. Right.
And I will hand this back to Keith.
Okay, Keith Pannell. I'm a professor of inorganic chemistry, University of Texas, El Paso. I've been down here in Texas for decades. I only joined the Texas Academy about 5 years ago. I was asked to put my name forward as president, assuming that there'd be a lot of candidates, and it turns out they lied. There was one candidate. So my very first enrollment in the Academy was as a president. I'm on the board. I'm now in charge of fundraising. Hang on, I've got to tell that person to go away. I'm on a phone. Okay. So as I said earlier, the Academy has two main functions: an annual meeting. Oh Christ! Excuse me. Oh, I'm not at home, so I'm.
And you're not originally from El Paso either.
No, I'm not. That's very clever. But right now, I'm up in the mountains of New Mexico for a long week, for a long weekend. And I have to leave by 2 o'clock. So if I leave, I beg your apologies. But the bottom line is that when I took over trying to get funds, I went to large companies first. I went to Blue Streak, that's Amazon's offspring in space. And then I went to Halliburton because I thought these were deep pockets. It was very successful for the first time. Now I'm wondering whether they're going to do this again. But anyway, so I'm looking for any ideas and I will have to come back later to see the recording. I presume that will be available to us. Great. So sorry for taking too much time. Oh, so I'll hand it over to Joy. Joy Carnes.
Hi, I'm Joy Carnes from Cedar Crest College, which is a small, primarily women's college in Allentown, Pennsylvania, so not far from the New Jersey border, about an hour and a half outside of Philadelphia. I've been at Cedar Crest for 22 years and have spent most of that time working with the Pennsylvania Academy of Science. I joined the board there in 2007 as recording secretary. I did a stint as president, and I'm currently the representative from the Pennsylvania Academy of Science to NAAS. Let's see, who hasn't gone yet? Kim, there you go, thanks.
Hi, I am Kimberly Carroll Stewart. I am the Science and Outreach Coordinator with the Nebraska Academy of Sciences of Nebraska. I'm actually in Scotland right now. Yeah, it's getting kind of late. It's almost 9. And so I might have to scoot a little early. I have a dinner plans coming up here. But I'm actually sitting in on this because I am trying to do some fundraising for our annual meeting coming up and trying to cover the cost of some students attending that don't have opportunity to get some grant funding through different venues. So I'm hoping to kind of get my mind around some other ways and other creative sources for funding. And I believe Paul, I don't think you've gone yet, have you?
No, I'm Paul Arvison, and I'm with the Washington Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C. And I see my colleague Mike Cohen is also here. So we are doubly represented. And we have recently been trying to connect with you all. We traditionally have not, but I'm hoping that we can do that, especially with the event coming up in the spring that Philip mentioned. We want to try to help you all out, and I'm hoping that this will be a two-way benefit for us. We are a rather small organization that's all volunteer board, and we have a limited budget. We don't have any sponsors from anybody, and we are looking to improve that situation. We've had I don't know, kind of a declining membership, but we do have one big event every year, which is an awards banquet that we hold with some of the illustrious scientists around the DC area, and we give out these awards. And I'm actually the VP of the Junior Academy, and we also do science fair judging, and we give out awards. I'll show you. We have trophies that we give out to the science students. This is for the senior high school science students, and they get this award, and it has our logo in it. So this is an inexpensive kind of trophy, but these are fun for the kids, because quite often these science nerds don't get any trophies in high school. So we like to have a celebration of them. We also have some connections with some of the local science centers and robotics clubs and the like that work with kids. So we're hoping to expand that project. And so I'll have some thoughts to share on how we're thinking about doing that as we go on here.
Mike Cohen, do you want to tag team after him?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, Paul, I'm glad you're on, since you explained the Washington Academy very well. I'm actually a representative at large, but I'm also on the board of the Washington DC Academy of Science. And I'm a principal statistician at a nonprofit in the Washington DC area. And I'm retired from 3 different agencies of the federal government. That's all I have to say right now, but yeah, definitely agree that the Washington Academy, DC Academy of Sciences could use some fundraising help.
Awesome.
Oh,
Lay, do you want to
Rob?
go next? And then we'll end on John Nemeth.
Oh, okay. So my name is Lei. So Lei is my first name. Last name is Z-H-A-N-G. So there are more than 100 million people share with the last name. We share the last name Z-H-A-N-G. So I'm with the North Carolina Academy of Science. And last year I was serving as a president over there. So Rana is the immediate past president. Myself is the currently I'm a professor of physics at Winston-Salem State University. I've been there for more than 17 years. And I serving for academic science, and also I was serving like finance committee and treasurer in another organization they call Riverkeeper. So in my opinion, it's very interesting. So because we have bigger donors, right? So usually those people donate like 100,000 per year. And hopefully, so this organization NAAS can fund the major donor. Also, you can fund we can fund some partnership with the some bigger corporation. And currently I'm a volunteer for the secretary of NAAS. Like our president say, so Haley and Richard help us a lot. So I do appreciate for those people's help. And otherwise, you cannot be there many things together because we have full-time job and we have other services together, right? So we do appreciate for that. I do believe this is a very strong team, and especially we have a very wonderful president. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it sounds like you're queued up for one of our breakout rooms later. John Nemeth, well, let's end up with your little introduction, and then Hallie will introduce our speakers properly.
Okay, my name's John Nemeth. I've discovered now that I've grown up what I really want to be, and that's retired. Before that, I was had a fairly successful career in environmental consulting. Then I was on the faculty at Georgia Institute of Technology for many years, retired from there and ran the Oak Ridge Associated Universities University Consortium. We had 122 research universities. That was really fun. So I retired again. And Sigma Xi called me out of retirement to help them with some issues that they were having for 6 months. And I was their executive director and CEO for almost 2 years. Then finally, I got to come back to retirement, and I find myself on the board of this organization and a couple of others, and pretty much enjoying myself.
Great, thank you all. What a great group. I'm so happy you all are here this afternoon. Hallie, I will turn it over to you. And if you want to run the show for the rest of the time here, I appreciate it.
Sounds great. I'm happy to. Definitely feel free to chime in if I'm missing anything. And I want to keep this chat pretty informal. Make sure everyone has space to bring questions and comments to the floor. So we're going to start off with Rob from Kentucky telling us a bit about a training on fundraising that he went to pretty recently. And then after Rob, we're going to hand it over to John Nemeth to talk about his experiences with fundraising. Each of them will talk maybe 10 to 15 minutes maximum, and then we'll come together as a group and have a discussion. I'm going to do something a little bit different after that, which is bring everyone into 2 different breakout rooms. So be thinking about your interest area here. One of the breakout rooms will be focused on state funding or increasing funding that academies are getting through those type of institutional ways, such as it could be through a university or through a state or other types of means. And then the second will be a breakout room focused on talking to like large investors. So thinking about if you're talking with companies or if you're talking about grants, other types of funding that are not necessarily year to year, but more you get a year or 2 of funding. So more of like a short term. So think about which you'd prefer. And after that, when we come back from those probably 15-minute breakout rooms, we'll have a group discussion where we can share some of the ideas we have. So without any further talking from me, I want to hand it over to Rob.
All right, well, thank you much. So I just want to start at the beginning of my fundraising efforts. When I came on board with the Kentucky Academy of Science less than a year ago, I had a background in communications for our state legislature. So I had written a couple fundraising letters for conferences we had held over the years, and I was familiar with persuasive communications through speeches and columns I had written. So I thought I had a bit of a background that would serve me well for fundraising. But as I got into it, I learned there's a whole lot more to it than I realized coming in. So there's been lots to learn. So I want to share with you some of what I've learned. And then I also want to show you an example of the fundraising platform that I've been exposed to over the past year. And it's one that I liked enough to adopt using myself. So I'll show you how that looks and works and what it offers. But when I first started with the Academy of Science, I met with a fundraising professional just to ask some questions and start learning a bit about the field. And one of my questions to her was whether or not she ever meets with prospective significant donors without ever asking, without ever making a pitch or a request for any funding during her meetings. And she said, yes, of course, I have meetings like that. As weeks went on and I learned more about what I was getting into, I grimaced that I ever asked that question, because it just showed what a complete, there was a whole world of things that I didn't know at that time. I now have a much better appreciation for the development process of all that goes into bringing members in, creating a relationship, engaging them, everything that goes into what happens before you make the request for funding. So I'll, let's see, I've got a PowerPoint here. Let me share my screen. Okay, everyone seeing this okay?
Yep.
All right. So really it all sort of step one is making sure that you've got the proper organizational readiness for fundraising, making sure you've developed a clear case of support that states why your organization is uniquely positioned to provide services and solutions to things that people care about, and why you're able to best utilize any money that's given. Then there's the matter of IDing potential donors and figuring out of all the different ways you can ask for money, whether online or through mail, which are the best ways to make solicitations. So it takes time to get ready. And here's sort of a little situation that illustrates that. When I came on board last year, we decided to do an end of the year sort of wrap up letter while also asking for money so we could continue our good work into the year. And that went out to, it got emailed to everybody in our group, and it was mailed through, snail mail to a select number of people. And the results ended up being mixed there. So one of the great takeaways from this is that the greatest value in what we did there is the information we come out of it with. Of course, we came out with some funding, which was nice, but we also now have information that we can use to build on and improve on next year, because we know exactly which people did respond to the mailing request as opposed to the email request. So we can save on postage and be more focused in sending letters in the future directly to the people who we already know will respond to mailing requests. So that's just one step in our organizational preparedness for improving our fundraising. I always like taking a look at exactly what goes into a good fundraising pitch, and I found a checklist that is it's pretty standard as far as what all the experts tell you that your fundraising letter should have when you're trying to make the best case that people should support you financially. And I'm not going to go through the entire list. It actually covers 2 different slides, but I am going to make comments about the first 6 items on this page. That your letter needs to make clear the problem your organization is addressing and how someone's gift is actually going to help solve that problem. They're going to have a part in joining a credible group that's taking actions that they care about. You of course want your letter to be personalized as much as possible from one person to another, not from a committee to a nameless person. And I'm always a fan for all communications and making it a most conversational style as possible. That helps breed the familiarity between you and the person reading the letter. And it's also important to remember that ultimately you're trying to make an appeal to their emotions just as much as their logic. You want to make your case not so much in laying out facts, but in telling a story that connects with people, where they're seeing, okay, here's a situation I can identify with, where there's a problem or a shortcoming that some good people are working to correct, and make someone want to identify themselves with that, to be more a part of that. That's something you strive for. I'm going to skip ahead to the next page. And I'm only going to mention 2 of the highlighted items on this page, the top and the bottom one. It's always good in a fundraising letter if you have a good PS at the end of it, sort of like the scenes from the Columbo TV show where it's, he goes, oh, and one more thing, and then lays on something important on a suspect. It's always good to end a letter by saying, oh, here's one more thing, and make sure it's really catchy. It's because the PS on a letter and the first sentence of the letter are the 2 most read parts of the letter. Just like captions under photos are the most read parts of any piece. So it's important for both a good beginning and the end. And the bottom line on this list mentions that you really do need to hook the reader's attention right from the start. Personally, I think of any fundraising pitches I get through the mail, I'm willing to read the first sentence of just about anything, but the odds of my going beyond the first sentence are about 10%. So that's really a key to make that compelling. Now I've got an example here of a letter. It's in small type, so hopefully you can see it, but I'll read through some of the parts. But this is a letter that numerous fundraising consultants show this letter as an example of what does things right. So I always like showing rather than telling. So I want to show you what they're doing right so we can all identify with it. And I'm not going to read the whole letter. And I'll also tell you I've abbreviated this letter. I added ellipses where I removed some of the sentences just to keep it brief for us. But here's the story they start with to hook the reader. When you look into the face of a child born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, it's impossible to know their pain. A child like this is mocked and ridiculed, unable to attend school, unlikely to have friends, eating and speaking are difficult. So right there, they're laying out a story, obviously heavy on the emotion. They're showing a problem, and they're going to follow up by saying why they're uniquely positioned to solve that problem. So the third paragraph, my wife, Kathy, and I faced this tragic reality nearly 30 years ago on our first trip to the Philippines to provide cleft lip and cleft palate surgeries. 40 children received surgeries, but 260 more were sent away. It broke our hearts. So again, with the emotion, laying out how they're working to solve the problem. And you're realizing these are good people, they're doing good work. it's the kind of people a lot of us would like to identify with, to join their effort. They follow up the emotional appeal. You'll see a couple bullets here, and this is really, I narrowed it down to just show 2 out of the 4 bullets, but they're laying out facts here of exactly what they've done, about the number of surgeries they've provided and the doctors they've recruited, and more facts after that. And then they get around to making their pitch, and their request for money is actually highlighted a couple times, which is important to do. They say, that's why we need your help. Your gift today can save a child from a life of pain and open up a world of opportunities. Just $40 or even $20 will help provide a free surgery for a child. Two sentences later, they're saying again, for as little as $240, you can help pay for a surgery for a child who's waiting now. So they're really drilling home that point. And down at the bottom of the letter, just like I mentioned before, it's always good to have a PS that grabs people's interest. They mention, PS, I've enclosed cheerful stickers for a child who will receive a new smile because of you. And then it goes on. But this is sort of a textbook letter that has all the components that a good fundraising letter has. So I just wanted to show that with you to say that this is something we should all be striving for. I'm going to speed up so that I don't take up too much time here. But the next slide is one of the greatest eye-opening things I've encountered as I've studied fundraising. It's the circle of your constituency of your group, and the people at the center are those most readily likely to give money. And then as you go further out, people become less likely to give, but they're still potential givers. So you see that, right there in the center, you've got the people who have already given in the past. You've got board members for your group, the staff members. Then outside of that, there are things such as the members of your group. As you go on out further, the second to furthest ring on the outside just says people with similar interests. So the idea for the people on the outside rings of the circle is to try to keep bringing them into the center of the circle. I know I saw the description of one of the points of this meeting today was to talk about getting donations from people outside our organizations. The first step is to start bringing those people into our organization, establishing relationships with them, working on some common issues and interests that you have with them, incorporating them into your communications, having conversations with them about your group, just anything you can to keep bringing the people on the outside into the inside, because it's the people on those inner rings where you're going to have the success with fundraising. Finally, I wanted to show you just the fundraising platform. There are many out there. You see different rankings for them, which ones are highest rated and which aren't. We were exposed to a fundraising platform from another group that was already hosting Kentucky Gives Day, where nonprofits could opt into it. And their platform was called GiveGab. So we joined into their Kentucky Gives Day effort to try to raise money for the Kentucky Academy of Science. And right away, we could see that they made it easy for us to build an attractive page, to put our case for support in there, to have automatically generated messages to thank people as they gave, to keep track of all the list of our donors. So it was a good first experience with GiveGab. I talked with the people who hosted this fundraiser just to see if they've also had a good experience. They said they did, so I actually got my own subscription to it. And here, this is just, it's hard to tell what this is, but this is a video that's on our host page that just tells all about our academy. So there's all these things the website just prompts you into saying, do you want to put a video in here? Do you want to put a story in here? They make it very easy for you. But my favorite part of all is something you see here. You can see on one of the lines in the middle of the page, Scott's Kentucky Academy of Science fundraiser. It makes it really easy for us to allow all our members, no matter where they are, to have their own personalized fundraisers in their name for our group. So, you know, our Academy of Science is divided up into a number of different sections according to the scientific disciplines that our scientists are in. So I can go sort of section by section and send an email out to a section and say, hey, we'd like to do this fundraiser specifically within your section. If you'll tell me that you're interested, I can turn right around and send you a link to a page like this that's going to have your name on it, that say it's your fundraiser for the Academy of Science. And all they have to do is post that link on whichever social media they're using or through an email. And it's a really easy way where we can personalize this so that suddenly we're reaching beyond that person to their friends and their family, people who might not normally give to the Kentucky Academy of Science, but they're going to help out the fundraising effort of a person who they are already friends with or have an acquaintance with. So that's one of the things that I've really liked about the GiveGab platform. And I'll just wrap up by saying I spoke with one of our section chairs earlier this week, hoping to talk about the fact that I was going to be doing one of these fundraisers in that area. But before I got to that, she mentioned to me, you know, currently the participation in this particular section is down quite a bit. You know, we have lots of different sections and lots of participation, and some more than others. So I happened to hit upon one where it looked like there was room to do some more work on engaging the members. So it made me think, okay, I'm not doing a fundraiser now. I'm going to zero in on what are some of the stories or features or things going on with the scientists in these sections, because I want to talk to them about that, write a newsletter story, put them on social media, make a video. I want to start doing this engagement work first, and then I'll come back in a couple months and point to all that work as well as holding the fundraiser with the group. And I've already the proof is in the pudding on that approach. For one of the most recent sections where we did a fundraiser for, I sent out the pitch, and the top 2 people out of that section who responded with an eagerness to do fundraisers were both people I had already talked with just within the preceding 2 months and created videos with them about what they were doing for social media. So I'm just constantly being reminded it's all about engagement. That has to come, or development, that has to come first before the request for money. It's a long process. I think out of 12 different steps of the official development process, asking for money is about number 10 on that list. So there's much to do to engage people first and foremost, and that's what I continue to learn and relearn. So that's the gist of what I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you, Rob. If you could stop sharing your screen, I'm
Yes.
going to spotlight John. I'm going to go ahead and move on to John for his remarks, and then we'll just have some conversation afterward with the whole group. Let's see.
We're ready?
Yep, sounds good, John.
Okay, well, Rob and I spent hours and hours coordinating our talks. And so you'll see that that's the case. Actually, that's not true. Rob did a really good job of getting into the nuts and bolts of what it takes. I'm going to talk a little bit more in my ramble, which is full of cliches and things that you already know. And let's just call it sort of a reminder about human nature and fundraising and some of the low-hanging fruit. Rob hit on it, but the cardinal rule for almost anything is it's a contact sport. Someone once told me that there are only 2 kinds of people in the world, successful salesmen and failures. Everybody is selling something. So I think the very first corollary that I want to talk about today is that, as Socrates said, you need to know thyself, right? And knowing yourself, most of us scientists and engineers will recognize that that personality is not the most engaging, the most outreach oriented, the most gregarious, if you will. And so we have to find those people, and hopefully those people find themselves sort of in the fundraising and membership areas. If you don't have the attitude of let me do my classes and research, leave me alone, then you're suited to be in the fundraising game. That doesn't mean you can't participate behind the scenes. Most people just shy away from that. And so in your academy, you need to be constantly on the outlook for those gas bag people that want to do this sort of thing. Personalities are important. So moving on, you need to define the personality, not only of certain individuals, but of your academy. What are you about? Are you all about STEM education, policy, research, all of these? Whatever innervates your membership, it has to be a chapter theme or academy themes. Can't be exclusionary, but you do need to get on with it and recognize who you are as an academy. There is no cookie cutter for all 37 plus academies that we have. And so the other thing that you have to recognize is that this is pretty much a rotating cast of characters. Occasionally there's some old blue hair like me that hangs on in an academy for 20 or 30 years and basically sort of ruins the deal. That cast of characters, as it changes, needs to re-look at the perspective of the academy and the personality of the academy in order to get on with what's going on in the world at that point. Well, you have to engage people, you have to know about them. Another cliche, find the busy people because they'll get something done. If you want something done, yada, yada, but everyone wants to be recognized in some way or other. And so find the busy people, get them engaged, and make sure that the others have something that they can contribute to the advancement of your academy. Which brings you to membership. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. And so many of our academies are rooted in the academy with universities and colleges, et cetera. We should not forget, and I think a lot of academies have not forgotten, that there's a lot of science going on in industry and in the private sector. And we must go out of our way to engage those people as well. So it doesn't matter. I've just gone through an exercise where there's a new president at an institution that I'm associated with. He's a research biologist, an eminent research biologist. He was inducted into Sigma Xi and a lot of other places, and now he's become a research administrator. And I reminded him when I got a chance to meet him that he hadn't paid his dues in a couple of organizations. He said, oh yeah, gosh, I got to do that. But now I'm going to get him to meet with the, in this case, a chapter president. And so you need to look at those people, cajole them, threaten them, deans or vice presidents or whoever they happen to be that relate to your academy. Sometimes you can even threaten them. You say, just tell them, you know, I'm gonna tell on you if you haven't paid your dues. I'm gonna tell everybody. Not just kidding. But also play the honorific card. Do whatever it takes. When I say honorific card, it is an honor to be a member of a state academy. And we need to advertise that fact. We need to engage with whoever can impact the business of science and technology and the policies associated with it. Um, the very first thing is to make contact. And who do you want to make contact with? Well, we've identified a whole list of them, public and private sector sorts of individuals. Mostly identifying who to contact is a no-brainer. Finding somebody to actually do it is a difficult place. So find your Tommy Talkers and your Gabby Glorias, your Ego Joe, your Flatter Me Flora, and turn them loose to begin to engage with that value proposition you've written, right? All of our academies do have a value proposition, right? And they shouldn't all be the same. They shouldn't all be the NAAS value proposition, but they should be some version of it that meets the desires of your academy's personality. When it comes to fundraising, you know, some of us are in a place where we need to have a bake sale or a silent auction or a science showcase to brag on the research that's been done. That can be done in a university real easily. It can also be done, I have found, in other places that I've worked, in the private sector. They too want to participate. And never forget that those that didn't go into the academic teaching and research venue want to go back and touch it every chance they get. So give them a chance. Engage those kinds of people. Find your friends, make partnerships, make contact, keep contact. In your workplaces, you have actual friends and organizational leadership opportunities. Those of you in academia, while this isn't the easiest thing to do, you can ask your professorial colleagues if you can have 5 minutes at the end of one of their classes to make a pitch for whatever it is that your academy is in love with. So you just have to engage. It's as I said, it's a contact sport. Rob has given us a lot of the nuts and bolts kinds of things that you do forward, but you have to know who to contact. Many of our academies have newsletters, and I'm afraid many of our academies send them only to a very small array of people. You can send them to the county commissioners, the state representatives, your Congress people, your senatorial staff, anybody you want to. It's only electrons. Of course, you need a mailing list, but once you got it, you're in business. Finally, you need to do what Rob has told us to do. Have a plan. Have something set up to pursue the personality and the desires of your academy. Have a system set up that works for you. There is no cookie cutter kind of approach. I've got one too that I talk about a lot, and I'll send that to Hallie if anybody's interested in looking at it. But you really have to work on the foundation of knowledge about yourself and then move on from there. And I guess that's about all. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you, John, for sharing insights with all of us. And thank you again, Rob. And I want to open the floor for any questions that attendees might have right now for a few minutes for Rob and John, and maybe doing some collective brainstorming on thinking about value propositions that are perhaps unique to your academy, how you might approach that, or if you feel like you've done this really well, some of those perspectives. So I just want to go ahead and open the floor.
Gosh, Rob, we've stunned them with our presentations. It's really great to know that we answered everybody's questions, isn't it?
It's good you went last. You took care of it all.
I want to say one thing I noticed is that, I mean, Rob, we are so lucky to have Rob. I can't even tell you all, like he just, showed you right now, but he just showed us like how clearly the communications and fundraising are connected. And, we wrote those into the same position because we wanted both of those functions. We happened to get lucky and find somebody who's really good at it, who can do both. But I think highlighting how important the communications are is really good, because that seems more accessible to some of us who don't have the fundraising muscles, and really understanding how fundamental that is to then, get excited about fundraising, and really like it boosts our own spirits, right? To remind
Yeah.
ourselves of all the cool stuff that we're doing.
You bet.
So while there are no questions on the floor, I want to pose a question to all of you to kind of get the wheels turning. What kind of resources right now, as you're thinking through fundraising and where you are in your fundraising journey, what kind of resources would be helpful? What do you need? And then if you want to also talk about where you are in your journey and how that works, that would be fantastic.
I have lots of questions, and I guess as I say, our board is small, and we can't get much done because we just don't have enough helpers. So I'm thinking we are planning to start a strategic planning effort. We don't have much in place, and that's where everything has to begin. For example, we tend to be proud of the fact that we were founded in 1898. So we're a pretty old organization. We have some Nobel Prize winners in our journal and so forth. But so what? What's going to happen in the future is what matters. So the concern I have is right off the bat, how big should our organization be? If we have bylaws that have locked us into this traditional way of working for the last 50 years, isn't it time maybe to re-examine all those bylaws and update some things? Why do we only have like 4 at-large board members? Why not 40? Why not at least 10? What should our size be? We need more helpers. As you say, honorifics, that's a great idea. Wouldn't it be honorable for somebody to join our board? That would be one of the benefits. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Paul, you have NAAS is just going through has just completed a lot of the very process you talked about. Looking at the bylaws, looking at the Constitution, trying to modernize and streamline. I've done that in a couple of organizations beside NAAS, and it's perfect. Somebody needs to be thinking about that all the time, because the next generation doesn't look like you and me, Paul.
That's right.
So we have to constantly be thinking about that. When I was at Sigma Xi, we were doing stuff that the boys from Cornell in 1886 set down. Literally, that's what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked when you were communicating by I won't say Pony Express, but telegraph.
Mm-hmm.
It worked. It was great. But we were still trying to do it 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And so what you say is exactly right. And every organization needs to go through that process. And it is not fun. It's the least fun thing that I can think that I would like to do. And I've had to do it 3 times now.
Right, because we do have some hangers on who constantly keep referring to the bylaws every time we want to do something. And I'm thinking, why don't we get that gets the cart before the horse? Why do we have, why don't we make the bylaws to actually serve our organization as it is now? And that's, I've been trying to get that point across, but it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, what could be worse than a young person comes to you with this great idea and they've got this energy and they're ready to go. And you say, well, we have to take that before the delegates and they meet in 6 months and then we'll have a decision within a year.
Yeah,
Give me a
right.
break.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Yeah.
If you've got potential enthusiastic engagement that's being hindered by bylaws, I'd say changing the bylaws would be one of the most useful things you could do.
Absolutely.
And the process itself of looking at the bylaws and seeing what serves you and what doesn't can be a useful exercise in itself.
Mm-hmm. We need to work on that.
You keep talking like that, Rob, you're gonna get yourself nominated to the NAS board.
So I have another question, if I don't dominate the meeting, but we do a lot of science fair judging, and I believe that whether it's done well or not, science fairs seem to be entrenched in public schools. It's an old tradition. It's all over the country, and instead of fighting it, I think we need to join it and leverage it to help us to connect with the public schools. And I wonder, other than the science fair, that's the only interface that we've been able to connect with the public schools. They tend to be wary of outside visitors, often for good reason. But I'm wondering, have any of you approached school boards or asked, how can we get more students involved in after school programs or things like that?
I'll mention something that Amanda's actually better qualified to talk about than me, but here in Kentucky, we've actually had discussions lately about there being fewer science fairs than there used to be because it's difficult for teachers to do all the coordination for them. And that sort of might even open the door further for something we're interested in, of having mentorships between scientists and students. So that's been part of the discussions that Amanda has led through with members in our group. So we're seeing less science fairs and looking for other opportunities to have engagements between scientists and students.
We've actually had a related conversation with mentorship, and this is way pre-pandemic. I think the pandemic itself kind of is a nice interruption that there's before and after, but we had talked about starting some mentorship programs because we found that the our higher socioeconomical school districts were broken into a bunch of school districts around this area, and the higher socioeconomical school districts have the students who have parents and resources that can get them, you know, to meet with faculty and even just to drive them into the colleges and have them use the labs, and they're doing the more advanced science fairs. Whereas our inner city Allentown school district really struggles because the students don't know what the resources are and they can't access the resources. And so years ago, we had looked at, and that would probably be one direction that fundraising could help, but to help facilitate that mentorship and get our inner city kids the experience. But of course, that's more regional. I don't know. Our PAS, Pennsylvania, is a huge state, and we've got so many different types of regions in our state. We've got a very large PJAS, a junior academy, but I do worry that it's mostly there's a bias, right? And it's not, the DEI issue is huge with underrepresentation.
Oh my, you've really hit on a really tough one. In our region here in Southwest Virginia, where I live, a couple of the colleges and universities have taken this by the horns, and they run the science fairs. The principal science fair is the Blue Ridge Science Fair that I've been involved in, but So the colleges then have been reaching out to the schools, wherever the schools are, and sending people into classrooms to talk and so forth. But again, it's a contact sport. Everybody's busy. You go to an assistant professor at college XYU and say, I want you to go to two or three towns and talk in 5 or 6 high schools about science and science fairs and stuff. And they say, come on, man, I am so busy. I'm on tenure track. And you know, there's just all of these things. And so when I said you have to find those people that just have a predisposition towards outreach. And that's not the number one characteristic of us. That's not the number one characteristic of us. So if you find somebody that's a gabby chatty, you really need to recruit them and get them engaged. You know, you've put your finger on, I guess, the one of the most horrific problems we have in our society. And we just got to keep swinging the bat. That's the only thing I can say. We just got to keep working at it. We got to keep finding. We've got to attract the underrepresented, whoever they are, into our community, actively into our community. What better than the academies of science to do something like that? You can't get into Sigma Xi without publishing papers, right? Well, that's not going to answer the question that Paul has put before us. Nothing wrong with Sigma Xi. I love it, but we I think are closer to the ground in these academies, and I think we have to focus on this. If Paul, and I'm sure he does, if he has a great relationship with Howard, that's important. Okay, that's important. They ought to be involved in the DC Academy, and so on across the entire country. You got to reach out and involve your colleagues and help them and yourself feel valued.
Philip, I saw earlier you had your hand up and I wanted to see if you still had a question.
Just a real quick comment. Rob, addressed to you. That ideal fundraising letter that you showed me was of great interest, of great value to me. So thank you. When this comes out on video, I'm going to go back and look at that letter and study it. I have a sense, though, and you said that there were some bullets that you left out of it. I have a sense that if I personally wrote that, other people would tell me that it was too long. That being said, I know nothing about writing fundraising letters.
You and I have the same sensibilities because I always prefer and strive for brevity. At the same time, I sometimes get in the mail fundraising letters that go to 3 pages. And I don't read them, and it amazes me they were put together. And I know they were put together, frankly, by people who know more than me. So I don't really understand what they're doing, but I strive for brevity. But there is that checklist of all the things that should go in a fundraising letter, and it's not a short list. So if you have the talents to check almost everything on that list while keeping something on 1 page, more power to you. I like brevity. That's what I strive to do. But I don't know what the ultimate answer is because I see experts doing it all different ways.
I think the most successful thing that I've ever done, and it's a little bit disingenuous. It's like when you're in your early dating days, if you're smart, you find out what perfume your potential girlfriend likes. Well, if you're going to write Burroughs Welcome, a letter, then you, by gosh, need to say what they are interested in that you know how to do in the first sentence and the last sentence. I think in most cases, it's as simple as that. You get a potential donor's attention by saying, you know, you guys have done a wonderful job, Rotary, in blotting out polio. And then you say all the stuff that you want to say to Rotary. And at the last thing, thank you for your work on polio. I mean, that sounds very simplistic, but that's what I believe. I really believe that that is the thing that attracts attention and will ultimately attract money. We want to hear that we're doing something that people appreciate. And so say it in the opening and say it in the closing. And be sure to ask for money. Okay? You might not say, I want money with dollar signs. You might say it a little bit better than that, but you got to say it. Best advice I ever had when I went from one job to another was say you want the job. I said I want the job every time, and I got every job I ever went after. You got to say what you want and mean it.
Make it clear and know your audience.
Yep.
Definitely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
I've heard it said that the number one reason people don't give is because they weren't asked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's go into breakout rooms real quick. I was going to do 10 minutes in breakout rooms, and I wanted to see of everyone who's here, can you raise your hand just using the little reaction button if you're interested in being in the breakout room on state funding? No one?
And what's the other one?
The other one is just corporate and other large donors, and also could be about grants. Also, what we could do is we could do 2 breakout sessions and they could both talk about similar things, and then we could come together and share. I just want a small group format so we can have more people sharing. So is everyone okay if I just scramble you into rooms? You go in and you talk about some of the issues you've had and how you want to move forward, and then we come back and we share? Perfect. Okay, let me go ahead and do that. You can keep talking while I assign the rooms.
Joy, just to my right, I have the Braves Phillies game coming on my iPad.
Oh, good. Go Phillies.
Oh, golly.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Although I will admit I'm more of a Southerner at heart. I was born in Jersey, but mostly lived down in Virginia. So
All right.
I y'all with the best of them.
Well, most Virginians don't know who they are. You know, they don't know whether they're Middle Atlantic, whether they're Northeasterners, whether they're Southerners, and so they just sort of waffle around. I guess Paul would say, "Thank goodness for the Nationals." It gives a focal point in baseball.
Yeah,
I
right.
was one of those Nova kids. I associated with DC more than anything.
All right, I'm opening rooms. You should be going to one.
Did I miss my chance to click? I didn't know if a second option was coming up. I should have accepted
Oh,
what
they're
was on
just-
my screen before, I guess.
Let me, gosh, how do I put you in it now? Good question. Not had that happen before. Thank you for the new challenge. because you declined. Yeah, I just named them. I just named them things earlier and don't accept that one though. Okay, now did it give you an invite? Hmm. Did you get an invite, Rob? I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I said I'm gonna click join again. I did that before, but I'm gonna click join right now.
Okay. Welcome back. I think everyone's back. I know we only have a few minutes left for this session, but I want to provide a few minutes for sharing some of the things that you talked about in your breakout rooms. So I can start really quick. One of the things that I found really interesting in the smaller group discussion was we were talking a bit more about like tangible things that we could do and thinking about, you know, every state, of course, has different needs, but there are some things that are in common. If we can start identifying those common needs and getting those states to work together or in complement, so maybe a state's really good at one thing and the other academy is not as good at that same thing, maybe they can work together to mentor each other. I also love the idea in our group about using Zoom as a platform for us to be able to meet from across the country, to really utilize each other as resources, and to think about how we can intentionally do that. Do others have things that they talked about in their groups they want to share? Joy, I see you smiling.
I think this is the part where everyone does the who me, the student thing. Don't make eye contact.
Well, no, actually, I tried to sucker Michael into being sort of the DC centric G2, you know, the intelligence operative for NAAS and all the other academies by sort of maybe keeping us aware of what's going on or what's not going on, and what federal opportunities might be. You know, whatever they chose to do. Anyway, I thought maybe that having an academy in the centric of our nation could be a pretty important thing. It could, and maybe they might think about carving out a couple of chores that would be valuable to all of us.
Yeah, I'm all for it. I need to bring it up with the WAS board.
Yeah.
I do think it'd be nice to identify commonalities amongst our different academies and work together in some of these veins. I think we can easily identify some things that we all have in common. We talked a little bit about giving prizes and awards at both the senior and junior academies for best poster. It'd be nice if it came with a little bit of cash award, but you know, just even having those award lines on the resume is huge for the students. But then also raising funds to get students to the national meeting for those junior academy students, because that's another big one. It's just so hard to get many students there. And it'd be nice if we could figure out a good way to work together, at least or someone could develop a model that we could then help apply, that we can replicate for each of the academies.
Yeah. In the partnership committee, we're looking at various kinds of partnerships, and there are a few efforts going on the side. If we were able to partner with some of our sister and brother organizations to pool our resources, there might be a way to come up with resources to get more and more students, because many of these organizations do exactly what we do. They have a big meeting somewhere, and there's generally a student poster session at least, and one thing and another, and it just seems to your board actually that that looking for these kinds of opportunities to pool resources is really sort of a no-brainer in these times of meager funding. and inflation. So we're looking at that sort of thing. And if you think you have opportunities where this sort of thing can might be able to happen, if you know somebody at the Council of Graduate Schools or wherever it might be that might be interested, please fly it into the partnership committee and let's see what's going. Let's see if something can happen. Like I said in my contacts, you know, it's all a contact sport.
I wanted to check. We only have a couple minutes left on the chat, but Rob, did you have any final thoughts on what your group talked about, or in general what you talked about today?
It's pretty well been covered. We, you know, for myself, when we talked about what each of our different organizations are fundraising for, I mentioned, as has already been mentioned, Junior Academy and having the money to send kids who win at the state level onto the national level to make their presentations, as well as Amanda's been working on a grant for the possibility of having enough money for a part-time staffer to oversee our efforts to create more mentorships between scientists and students. And I also mentioned just thoughts in my head that I haven't acted on yet, of really breaking down all our different efforts and expenditures, or at least staff time on things to say, like, you know, make a fundraising pitch specifically for a certain video series that's important to people, or a specific fundraising pitch for our advocacy efforts that try to give scientists a voice at the state capitol. So that's just sort of one of the things on my to-do list, to see whether it's feasible for us to break down what we're pursuing into specific asks of people that give them more of a concrete idea of exactly how their money could be used.
Yeah, there's nothing more powerful than going to a potential funder and saying, you know, we are right in your sweet spot. Here's what we're trying to do, and we see on your website that you're trying to do the same thing. How about it?
Absolutely. We are at time, and I want to make sure that everyone can go and enjoy their weekend. But I wanted to go ahead and thank all of you so much for participating, and thank you so much, Rob and John, for sharing your expertise. I have, and I know Amanda does too, a lot of good ideas for future Academy chats from this. One of the ideas that I had was to actually have some possible roll-off, like working sessions, where we can bring ideas or documents for a value proposition or fundraising documents to talk about them together, and maybe even edit each other's and work on that, and try to do it as a team, and think about how we can work together, maybe as a pool of academies as well. So thank you all so very much for your time. And with that, we'll wrap up the Academy chat. Oh. Philip.
There we go. Would you, who's ever administrating, would you transfer that over to me at the end here? And I'm going to continue to talk. Thank you.